We have new developments in the coronavirus crisis this morning. A bit of history too. Look at this. Dedicated ground staff have waved off the final Virgin Australia flight as it departed Sydney for Los Angeles. It comes as the airline asked the government for a $1.4 billion lifeline to keep flying after the crisis.
Around Australia, there are now 4,364 confirmed cases. 18 people have died. At least 312 people are now listed as recovered. 177 countries have cases of Covid-19. More than 741,000 people have been infected. The death toll has climbed above 35,000, but more than 156,000 have now recovered.
As the coronavirus claims more jobs and livelihoods, Australians have been given an economic lifeline like never before, the biggest in history. The government has announced $130 billion over 6 months to support businesses and workers. Employees will receive $1,500 a fortnight in wage subsidies to keep their jobs. The government will pay employers to pass on the payments to employees. The Australian Taxation Office will police the scheme, ensuring subsidies are passed on. The Prime Minister estimates 6 million Australians could lose their jobs. This stimulus package is aimed at keeping as many people as possible in jobs for when the crisis is over. So who's eligible? Businesses, not-for-profit organisations or sole traders whose turnover has fallen by 30% or more. Payments extend to full-time employees, part-time employees and casual staff who have been with their employer for 12 months or more. JobKeeper payments will be issued from the first week of May and backdated to yesterday. Those already on JobSeeker payments should talk to their boss to see if they're applying for wage subsidies. If so, they can switch and avoid welfare benefits. $1,500 a fortnight, roughly equal to the median wage in the industries affected the most, like retail, hospitality and tourism. The figure is the same for all workers, no matter what you were earning previously. So far, there's been $320 billion of economic help to ease the impact of the coronavirus. This represents more than 16% of Australia's total GDP.
Let's go live now to our team of reporters, beginning with Olivia Leeming in Canberra, where the Prime Minister has unveiled an extraordinary wage subsidy. So businesses are praising the multi-billion-dollar announcement, Olivia.
They are, Nat, and I can tell you so far this morning, as of about half an hour ago, more than 111,000 businesses across the country have already registered their details with the tax office so that their workers can benefit from this payment of $1,500 a fortnight, though unions still concerned by the fact that it will only apply to people who have been with the same employer for at least 1 year, worried that many casual workers will miss out, though the government is assuring anyone who's been laid off who isn't eligible for that wage subsidy that they will still be able to claim welfare, the job seeker payment of up to $1,100 a fortnight. It's about $200 a week less than the job keeper payment. Here's more from the Treasurer.
We actually want to be very flexible around this scheme because it's critically important that we get the money to employees and that we ensure that businesses can continue to keep their workers on the books. That's why we have been motivated to spend $130 billion.
Now, those unemployed before, their partner had to earn less than $48,000 a year to receive welfare. Now that cap has been lifted to nearly $80,000. So something Labor had been pushing for. It will see welfare extended to an extra 400,000 Australians. Now,
to Nathan Templeton in Melbourne now. Nathan, millions of Australians will start receiving $750 from today.
Yes, Nat, it's a welcome boost for many people, including those lined up at this Centrelink office here in Melbourne. In all, 6.5 million Australians, quarter of our population, will get this one-off payment of $750 tax-free. It's a $5 billion investment by the federal government. They're hoping it'll be spent across the communities and will boost our struggling economy, but also, importantly, help our most vulnerable people through a very difficult time. In terms of who is eligible, it's pretty much anyone who's currently on Centrelink payments. Among those are people on an age pension, disability support, carers allowance, parenting payment and New Start and Youth Start allowances. There are other categories also eligible, so check online to see if you will receive that money. For those waiting on this payment, the key messages are you don't need a contact Centrelink. If you're eligible, you'll be paid automatically. Not everyone will be paid today, though. It is a huge task. Hopefully the system holds up and everyone should get their payment by about April 17. Nat?
To Samantha Brett now, who's at Sydney Airport, saying the government is considering a multi-billion-dollar bailout to keep Virgin Australia in the air.
Yes, now we know that airlines right around the world have really been hit hard as a result of the virus. Now Virgin is asking the government for a loan, $1.4 billion. The company has also said if it can't repay that loan in 2 to 3 years, it will give the government a stake in the company. Now, reportedly, Qantas is unhappy about this request, saying that all airlines need to be treated equally. But we know that both airlines have really been hit hard over the past few weeks, having to let go 28,000 staff members. Meantime, this morning we're seeing more travellers returning here to Sydney International Airport from overseas, dozens of them. We've spoken to some of them this morning. Many say that they are angry about these new quarantine laws, saying that they are being unfairly punished. We're about to see a flight arrive from Chile. Hundreds of Australians were stranded there. Some of them had to pay up to $10,000 for a ticket, Nat.
To David Woodward in Melbourne now, where there's been a coronavirus scare overnight. David, 2 Coles employees have tested positive for the virus.
Yes, the 2 workers had been here at the Brandon Park Coles in Melbourne's southeast when they have tested positive to coronavirus. We still don't know exactly where in the store they have been working, but we have confirmed that they've been in close contact with a number of other employees at this shop, and those workers have now been put into isolation. Now, Coles insists it's done a thorough clean of this store here. It's been in close contact with the Department of Health, and they have now been given that green light to reopen their doors and start trading as normal. It comes as Victoria overnight went into those stage 3 restrictions. That came into force at midnight. It includes some tough new financial penalties for those found flouting those social distancing laws, fines in excess of $1,600 there. The Premier, Daniel Andrews, has said it's going to be a tough time for everyone, but he hasn't ruled out a 4th and further stage.
Bianca Stone is in Brisbane. You've got details, Bianca, on new alcohol restrictions at liquor stores across the country.
Nat, that's right, but we must point out there are no supply issues. There is no shortage of alcohol. People don't need to stockpile. In fact, that's what these new limits have been brought in for, so people don't hoard alcohol. They are very generous as well, so homeschooling parents everywhere can breathe a sigh of relief. This is the new restrictions which are in place as of today. You can get 2 cases of beer, 2 cases of cider, 2 cases of pre-mixed spirits, 12 bottles of wine, 2 casks of wine or 2 bottles of spirits. We saw sales of alcohol spike last week, up about 35%. So just repeating, no shortage of alcohol. You don't need to stockpile, Nat.
It's pretty clear. To Amanda Backman now in one of the country's most famous wine regions. The Barossa Valley, Amanda, has become a hotbed for coronavirus.
That's right. There are some towns of particular concern, and they are Tanunda, Nuriutpa, Anguston, Williamstown and also Lyndoch. It's because of a cluster of cases here, 34 cases that are linked to 2 tour groups, American and Swiss travellers. We are being told that unless travel is necessary into and out of the Barossa region, we should stay away. Now, as well, as of midnight, the government has imposed restrictions on wineries and cellar doors. The public will no longer be able to visit them to purchase their wine. It comes as the cases in South Australia reach 305, with 8 in the ICU. The largest cluster, though, that we have seen is from the Ruby Princess, 71 cases from that cruise ship.
And Tamara Bowe is on the Gold Coast as calls grow louder to scrap Year 12 exams nationwide. The government is adamant testing will go ahead, though.
Will, but here in Queensland they are tweaking the system to help lighten the load for students, teachers and parents. This was to be the first Year 12 cohort to graduate under that new ATAR system after the old OP ranking system was dumped. That was already cause for concern, but now even more so as these students face the prospect of taking at least term 2 online. But of course there are calls across the nation to dump this final assessment for these Year 12 students entirely. A petition online has around 10,000 signatures since it launched last week, but education experts say these exams must go on.
Teachers are working hard to ensure they're well prepared for their Year 12 exams. They have a right to get their Year 12 certificate by the end of this year. And let's not forget, most of the Year 12 exams are at least 6 months away. They could potentially be delayed by another month or two, so there's no reason at this stage to cancel them.
Now, here in Queensland, one internal assessment from each syllabus will be dropped to help ease the burden. But whether you have a student in primary school or high school, obviously homeschooling is not for everyone, but many families are being forced to adapt to that for now.
OK, thanks everyone. Here's Koshi.
Now, the number of positive Covid-19 cases in New South Wales has increased to more than 2,000. 114 people have been diagnosed with the virus in the past 24 hours. While the increase isn't as large as the previous day's 127, the state's Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, is warning all of us not to be complacent.
I want to please say to everybody, remain vigilant. Do not look at the case numbers on a daily basis. That's not the number to look at. What we need to consider is the community transmission that we might not even know about. That's the threat.
The Olympic Games in Tokyo, postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic, has a new date to start. The event will be held from July 23 to August 8 next year, while the Paralympic Games will now take place between August 24 and September 5, 2021. The announcement comes a week after organisers were forced to delay the Games following heavy pressure from athletes and sports federations around the world.
Prince Charles is out of self-isolation just a week after testing positive for coronavirus. The 71-year-old heir to the throne displayed only mild symptoms of the disease. The 7-day quarantine period is in line with UK government guidelines. One of the Queen's footmen, though, has also tested positive for coronavirus, sparking further fears for the monarch's health. Buckingham Palace says the Queen remains well and is staying in Windsor Castle with the Duke.
Elmo and Cookie Monster are doing their part to help keep kids safe during the coronavirus pandemic. The Sesame Street characters are featured in a series of animated public service announcements.
Wash, washy, wash, washy, wash, wash. Rub your hands and fingers and the places in between. Using soap and water makes your hands so clean. Wash your hands. Great job, you're almost done.
Oh, how cute is that? The ads are being distributed globally in 19 languages. Washy, wash, wash.